You can, and is there any other board member that wants to ask? Go ahead, trustee Warren. We usually just let the board members, and then we'll continue back with the residents.
Yeah, I'm very sensitive to the safety concerns. I mean, judging by the pictures, it would be very hard to see around this. But if we go the direction of having this taken down, I too am on the, I too very much agree. You know, finding a hardship parking permit at cost, I think that's an appropriate thing to do. And I think that's kind of the direction that I'm leaning in this circumstance.
So eliminate the parking space.
Eliminate the parking space.
So,
But
I'm not suggesting we eliminate anything. If we were to, I would want us to keep parking.
Yeah.
Well,
oh wait,
I think that's overkill, I think, because have you driven by there at all? Have you looked at that site? I've driven down many times, down the alley. I ripped out all the shrubbery that Erica had me put in. She didn't tell me to put the dumpster there. It's always been there, at least 17 years, and probably quite a few more than that.
and is it required?
Pardon?
It's required, correct? To have a dumpster?
Yeah,
Yes.
right. And she also had me put vegetation along to kind of hide the parking space that was there. So that we put in, and that, that grew. And I could see coming down, if someone's complaining, you couldn't see anybody, walking on the sidewalk there with the shrubbery. Because, well, the shrubbery was about 3 feet tall. We ripped it all out. Okay, so it's a clear site. If you come down, unless you're flying through the alley,
The pictures, right?
okay, unless you're flying through the alley, and hopefully, you're not doing that. If you're coming along the alley, you can see all the way up the street, except for the width of the dumpster. If I took the enclosure out, about the width of the dumpster.
Oh, please,
What?
continue
So
on. and then-
that's how much
Next.
that is maybe blocked about this high, okay? And it's a little more than 3 feet. I don't know if you measured it, it's 4 feet. I don't even know if it's that tall. But anyway, it's a 2-yard dumpster. It's about like this. So I think it's pretty visual now, especially if I take down the fencing. I'd rather have that than have to eliminate a parking space.
So I'd like to hear from the resident, and then I had a question, and then trustee McKay can go after that. So did you want to come forward? I know you've been waiting.
I've been on the block 21 years, or over 21 years, and I don't recall the garbage dumpster being there when we moved in. The fence gadget has only been there a relatively few number of years, then I've been fighting against it since it was installed, because as we exit the alley, you cannot see the sidewalk. You cannot see the traffic coming from the north.
Because of the fence, or because of, was it better without the fence?
The fence is more of an obstruction than the dumpster. They're both limit the visibility.
Okay.
I don't think you can assume that everybody exiting the alley is going to do so at a very slow pace, because I have witnessed a lot of people exiting the alley at speeds that I wouldn't travel through the alley at. Some people will honk near the sidewalk, and I consider that kind of disrespectful to the people in the house that's right on the alley. But, I creep out of the alley because I don't want to be responsible for hitting a person or a dog or running into another vehicle.
Bart, or...
And to be debating whether a parking space is more valuable than somebody's physical well-being or life, to me is somewhat outrageous.
I know, excuse me. Chief Nimmer or Bart, I had asked this ahead of time, and I don't remember if it got transferred over, but what is the safety record? Has anybody been hit? Has there been any complaints or accident reports? And I only ask that because I ask that every time when we talk about stop signs, when we talk about yield signs, when we talk about, because there's a lot of close calls in this tight urban area, and so I always want to make sure, was there anything on record?
I didn't receive that, so I didn't follow up on it, so I don't know the answer. Chief Nimmer.
And I was not asked that, so I don't know.
I have two board members. Did you want to answer that specific question?
I have insight into the mirror situation. I was on the pedestrian safety committee when that mirror was put in at near the school at Lake Bluff.
Okay, I'll call on you after then. Trustee McKay?
My comment is that I think it would be, since the enclosure goes above you know, it sort of extends the height of the obstruction, I think it's reasonable to either remove the enclosure completely or reduce the height of it so that it is more in line with the dumpster. And I would be inclined to leave it there and so to grant the special privilege.
Trustee Carpenter?
Yeah, I just did a quick Google search to see the standard height of a 2-yard dumpster, and it's actually just under 3 feet tall. And so I would actually agree with Trustee McCaig's thoughts is to either remove that in fencing or even just lower it, just maybe right within height of the dumpster. So there is some aesthetic, I mean, it does provide some aesthetic as you're walking by, but then that would allow the visibility that's necessary as you're coming out of that alley. So, you know, I live on an alley, and that is something, regardless of what's on either side of it, that just needs to be, the residents need to be cautious of, is, you know, slowly approaching that sidewalk. You know, I think having that there is, you know, just another part of living in an urban environment, so.
And I just want to, and then I'll call on the residents again, I just want to echo both the 3 trustees that just spoke. Even an apartment building is a small business. I mean, if you're a rental property owner and I'm a small business, and I have to have a dumpster because you're required to have it for garbage and you pay for it, and there's nowhere to put it. And, you know, these are older lots, and so if there's really nowhere else to put it besides a parking space, I would give my business's livelihood for that parking space, and I can't imagine anyone saying, take it away. A hardship on the road is not a dedicated parking space. It is, you can park on the road with a permit, but you're not pulling into a spot. So to rent an apartment, and I've heard from many landlords, it's more difficult when you don't have a dedicated parking space, and the rent needs to significantly decline, and at this point, older apartment buildings aren't doing so well, which we'll find out in our housing study when it's done. So, but regardless, I would not advocate for it. I would agree that breaking down the fence would be okay. I live on Kensington, which is an alley. We've had this conversation with our neighbors as well. A child was hit, and we still didn't put up the stop signs, you know, so it's just, we're in an urban tight area, so I think whatever we can do to accommodate it, and if there's no other trustees that like to talk, I'd like to hear about the mirrors for a second. So I would be in favor of bringing down the fence. Trustee Bachhorst, and then...
And I too would be in favor of bringing down the fence if that meets the safety requirements of the 3 feet, or, I mean, because we want to balance we want to ensure that public safety is represented here, but also, you know, there are
Like the mirrors
solutions
that
if
we
we would have to move the dumpster. So I would be inclined to hear staff's opinion on it.
I find it hard to believe that's only 3 feet tall, but so maybe that's without the wheels or something, so it's definitely closer to 3 feet. If you remove those 2 boards, you're probably losing, you know, a foot of screening on there. I would suggest you're probably still at 3.5 feet with that, so it's getting better for sure by removing that. So if that's the direction of the board, that it's, you know, an accepted condition. I simply brought it to the board because staff doesn't have any people or the authority to approve it, so I'm interested in the conversation just as much.
Trustee Meyer.
Yeah, just looking at this picture, the existing fence looks like it's partially blocking the stop sign. Looking at these poles that are coming up, it's part of the corner, at least the stop sign, especially if you're coming from cars down. So definitely lowering the fence would be critical. There's also these carts out there, these rolling carts.
Those are recycled carts.
And another box. My concern is this is a unique building. It's kind of this multi-family place right in the middle of it's a residential neighborhood, and having a dumpster and rolling carts right out in the street, part of the public way. I am not going to vote for it. I think there may be other options. I understand that the garbage people want to pick it up from the alley, but maybe put a pad in front of this parking and roll it out. Other businesses, or make a pathway down the sidewalk and roll it down the sidewalk when it's picked up there.
There's a hill right there.
Yeah.
And it would be rolling down the hill then.
Trustee Mento.
Yeah, I'm also not able to support this because I mean, if you look at how it's situated, you know, a kid could be walking and I mean, that's happened to me, that somebody comes and you're almost, it's me exiting my driveway, I've almost hit people. It's confusing to be, you're looking, you're trying to look in the sidewalk and you're looking at traffic, and you're completely blocking people who are kids, and even if there was no fence there, it just, to me, it's a safety thing, and I would vote against the special privilege, is my opinion.
Okay. Can we hear from the resident that's been waiting?
Sure.
I just wanted to say that it was a very valid point that you raised about the fisheye mirror. And it's actually one building down from the Bourgeois. It's right next to the dental office. And it's half a block from the school at Lake Bluff School, and came before the pedestrian safety committee. There are a number of concerns. And the village Department of Public Works worked with the pedestrian safety committee and found that for a relatively small, influx of money from the village, it added an increasingly huge amount of safety for the number of children that went by. But it wasn't just for that, it was for all of the residents that came down the block. There was a facade change on the dental office, so then they were also backing into that area. So there were multiple dangers for children and pedestrians, as well as the motor vehicle traffic. And they put up those fisheye mirrors. And ever since then, I was on the board for the pedestrian safety committee for a number of years. We had no complaints. And it went up very quickly. They're relatively cheap compared to other things that can be put in. And they're usually put up right on the stop posts, or the posts are made a little bit taller that are already there, and they put one mirror one direction and another the other, and it gives a very good view, and it really does increase the safety. So I don't know if that makes you more comfortable, or if people wanted to check at that, but the pedestrian safety committee was thrilled with the DPW and their recommendation in that situation.
Thank you. Can we get your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay. Patricia Krieger, 1416 East Lake Bluff Boulevard.
Thank you so much. And then we'll get one response. Did you want to speak, and then Leanne? Did you have any? I said.
Well,
just so you can listen to words.
the estimate that the cart is 3 feet tall, I think, is possibly not accurate. It's also wide, and the fence is wider or longer, I guess, depending on the perspective, than the cart. So taking down the fence would definitely be better, but with all the garbage and recycling receptacles there, it's still a visibility issue.
Thank you. Leanne? And then,
Just based on what I know of the site, the pictures I've seen in Google Street View, those mirrors work very well in certain locations under certain circumstances. I'm not sure that this particular one, we could configure those mirrors to provide the type of protection that they did in the Lake Bluff Alley. It's certainly something that we could look at, but I would just caution you, don't make that your first line of defense. And just a note on the Google Street View, I don't know how old this is, but the dumpster is taller than the garbage carts. So to provide some perspective, this is the height of a typical garbage cart. The dumpster appears to be a good 6 or 8 inches taller than that.
okay, thank you. And one more
It's about this high, and it goes probably from here to here, okay? And that's true.
Go measure it, please.
Anyway, so that's about how big it is. And with having ripped out all the shrubs, you can drive down, you can see the whole sidewalk except for that part where the enclosure is. If I take down that many feet of the enclosure, you'll be able to see, or I'll take the whole darn thing down if that's what you guys want. I'll take it all down. And then there's only just a little bit that you're going to be looking. So anybody walking, you're going to see them, unless you just don't even look at anybody on the sidewalk and just fly into the street.
Do you have a motion?
And the other thing is, I'm a resident of Shorewood since 1992, and I think I would have heard about it, especially being in one of the buildings if anybody ever got hit in the alley. So I'm pretty confident that no one's ever had an issue. I've never had a complaint from anybody about it. And this just came to my attention this year.
Thank you so much. Does the board member have a motion? Trustee McKay?
I was gonna ask that we limit the discussion at this point because we're not hearing any new, just disagreement. I would make a motion to approve the request for a special privilege at this location, but direct the resident to work with the building owner to alter the enclosure so that it does not extend higher than the level of the dumpster. I don't know what the technical.
Does that, can I ask one question before a second? Does that also, with the bottom planks, do they have to be there? You know, there's that wood at the bottom?
I don't have a position on that.
Okay, I just didn't know if that would help keep it higher or lower. It's a good 2.5 inches or something. Okay,
I'll second.
all right, so we have a motion by trustee McKay and a second by trustee Carpenter. Any further discussion? Trustee Warren?
Can I make an amendment to also direct, and I'm not sure if we'll work with who, but I'm gonna say, direct the property owner to work with DPW, or direct DPW to work with the property owner to evaluate the feasibility of placing fisheye mirror on the
So
side.
you wanna ask her to make a friendly amendment to add that?
Yes, I think that.
With all due respect, trustee Warren, I would not accept that friendly amendment due to the fact that there are many alleys and I would want to, I would want to explore that a little bit.
Okay, so do you wanna make an amendment to the motion?
I'll still make the amendment.
Okay, and do we have a second to the amendment?
I'll second.
And trustee Menta has a second. So any discussion, further discussion on the amendment? Is this correct? On the amendment? Or either one? No. Trustee Bachhorst, no, Leanne.
One is, I was just curious if the Pet and Bike Safety Committee has looked at this. Number two, I also say that, everything might change after a traffic circulation study. We might get a really solid recommendation. And the amendment is dated, can you repeat the amendment? That's my third question.
Direct the property owner to work with DPW, or if you work with property owner, to look at possibly installing fish eye mirrors.
So we're now
That's
requiring that this is, this is very vague, so.
No, wait, it's in addition to the first one, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Correct.
so read the whole thing.
It's in addition to.
Going to take the amendment first.
Yeah, the amendment is all I need to know.
I just want to make sure.
But
I just
Then
want to
we
know
go
what
on
the
to
amendment
the
said
other
before I.
Right.
Yeah. So the
Okay.
original motion was to approve the application for the special privilege and to direct the applicant to work with staff after the enclosure, to alter the enclosure so that it does not extend higher than the dumpster.
And
And then
then,
the amendment was to direct the property owner to work with DPW to look at possibly installing fisheye mirrors.
so in addition, okay.
I guess I would have a problem with, that doesn't state that you have to install it, and I'm not saying that we should, but I think that's more of a village issue than having the property owner work with DPW to look at that.
Whatever way we.
I'd say that's internal, not, I don't think it's, unless we're telling him he has to install one, which I don't think is our purview at this point.
No, it's not, it's saying just to work to see if it's feasible, is that correct?
Yeah, I wanted to see if it's feasible, so maybe just direct DPW to determine feasibility.
And we don't need to put that in motion.
Do we? We could.
I would like to have something
Yeah.
clarified with that.
Okay, and then did I miss something? Wait, Leanne had something and then Rebecca?
Actually, that takes care of it. I would just ask that you ask DPW to review feasibility. If that would work to be installed, it would be installed in the public way. We wouldn't be working with the property
Okay.
owner to do that.
All right, you're okay with that, trustee Warren, trustee Mata, is that an okay
Yeah.
language? Okay, Rebecca?
So I'd ask the cost of if something is improved be borne by the property owner. And if they pay for the improvement, we were doing installation, but they'd be required to pay for the
Why?
improvement.
We're not requiring the improvement, we're just saying work with them and look at it.
But if it were to be inquired, it'd be my recommendation to this board that they pay for us acquiring the equipment to install it.
And then come back if he has a comment and ask for something different.
No, we would make the decision on where it's just the cost of what we borne by him. It's for the direct benefit of his property.
It's in the public right of way, but you're saying,
I'm just
no, I'm
providing
asking
my-
for the few, like, so, not to set precedent, it's in the public right of way, but because we're allowing a dumpster to block the view, then they,
Correct.
okay, I see what you're saying.
It would not be within a recommendation I would make to this group to install these, whatever, fish hook line to anyone who made this request.
Right.
I just want to be clear about it from a process standpoint moving forward. It would, and that we would install it in a manner that would be directed by our Public Works Department, but the cost itself of that equipment would be borne and be provided by there. That would be my recommendation to the group. You didn't ask for one, but I provided.
I'm okay with that. If that's-
Okay.
It's, you got a second over there? Okay. So, any further discussion? Seeing none, we will vote on the amendment first, which is,
To ask DPW to review the feasibility of fisheye mirrors and for the property owner to take on the cost if the improvement is made.
okay, all those in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1, or for the amendment. And now we will vote on the amended motion. And read the whole thing, right?
To approve the application for a special privilege to allow refuse cart and enclosure within the right-of-way at 355 North Prospect Avenue, and to direct the applicant to alter the enclosure so that it does not extend higher than the dumpster, and to ask Public Works to review the feasibility of fisheye mirrors and for the property owner to accept the cost if the improvement is made.
Okay, any further discussion? Trustee Bachers?
It's just procedurally, if the property owner refuses to pay for the cost, then is the whole special privilege permit denied?
We come back, don't we?
He's here applying for a special privilege permit.
No.
Are you correct, Jim? That you're here to apply?
I'm
for a
here
special-
to apply for that, yes. And I'll pay for it. I'm a little bit irritated that, I was forced to build this whole thing. And then I have to take it all down and on top of that, pay for, the mirrors. But if that's what it takes, I'll pay for the mirrors.
But it does sound like DPW might not think it's a great location for mirrors, just so you know. Trustee McKay?
Point of clarification, so is that that's the meaning of the amended motion? Is that there is an intent on the part of this board that, that the special privilege, the approval of the special privilege request is contingent upon,
Taking down the fence.
right, but also then the mirrors?
The feasibility, if the DPW requires, finds them feasible in that location and says, yes, this would be a safety, we were recommending it, they would pay for it. If they don't, the special permit is denied, or special privilege.
Was that the intent?
So the special privilege will be denied?
If you didn't want to, if we.
Oh, if I pay for it.
Yeah.
Or if they decide it's not feasible.
Oh, that's fine, that's it.
But we still
That's
can
the motion.
just lower the fence.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Yes, just a minute.
I would like to ask trustee Warren, was that your intent with the amended motion?
Yes, it was.
That the special privilege would be tied to if mirrors are feasible, they must be installed, and the owner pays,
That's
that they
correct.
must be installed.
If they are feasible.
That was your intent.
That was
Would
my
have
intent.
recommended feasible, yes.
Yes.
Trustee Bachers?
I hate to do this now, but I'm just gonna say that, again, I don't think it's up to us to decide what the public safety, I mean, if mirrors are feasible, doesn't mean it's the best course of action, or even, I'm not comfortable dictating to staff what the remedy is for a safety situation. As a board member, I would be more, I would rather rely on their knowledge, which it sounds like Bart is saying, you know what I mean? Like, I know there's often a happy medium or a compromise, but so I think I'm gonna vote no on the amended motion.
We already voted.
I can't read.
Oh, no, we
I can reconsider.
You can vote again and make a new motion, I guess, that would be fine.
You don't have to support now, the motion as amended, it doesn't mean you have to vote for the motion as amended.
Well, I know, but I'd
That's
rather
your
just vote down the amendment, because
Too late.
all right, fine.
All right.
I mean, I could reconsider it, but whatever.
Trustee McKay?
Proceed.
I don't feel I can support the amended motion with that intent, because there are alleys all over town that have, I had huge lilac trees at the end of my alley that, I just think that we're getting into an unintended policy consequence. Not that maybe mirrors are the way of the future, but I'm uncomfortable.
We haven't looked at it.
Exactly, and I'm comfortable with tying special permit approval to that unknown.
Well, we're tying it to lowering the fence, not removing
Right,
the fence.
that, I made that motion, just the amended motion.
Just, I meant to.
Wes just messed everything up with this
Yeah.
amendment.
I know that.
I know.
It's okay.
I mean, if there's other obstruction, I mean, to me, the point is that this is the public right of way. And if there's lilac trees or bushes or other obstructions of the right of way that present a safety risk, we definitely should be, and I assume we are requiring those to be removed. So anyway, I just wanted to make that point.
Not always.
This
Yes.
vision triangle that Bart refers to is actually in the code at 535-32, section 3.
I knew it was somewhere.
It deals with yards and the vision 50 feet, like where the intersection, where the alley would intersect, it's 50 feet either way. You should have there should not be any fence higher than 3 feet. There should be no plant material permitted which obscures the safe vision of the approaches to the intersection. So it is referred to 3 feet, he thought, and the vision. So it is a concept, and I know I've been where we've requested people take down rose bushes in the right of way and stuff, so you can see. And maybe it's something we should. Safety is so critical. We should probably be making sure that's happening more consistently. Continuing to permit obstruction visions.
We're in deliberations now, so I don't think we can have any more comments.
Can I
Trustee
point of
Montero.
order? So if we, Nathan, if we vote to do something that's contrary to the village code, does that require a 2/3 vote, or is that just we can do it by majority vote? Because we're kind of suspending village ordinances, right?
Well, there is a specific ordinance in chapter 155 that talks about suspending the rules, but here's, I don't think it necessarily applies here, because when you talk about the special privilege permit, whenever you give someone the opportunity to place something in the right of way, in a public right of way, it comes with strings attached. You could change your mind at the next meeting and tell them, on theoretical level, somebody to take it out, or change your mind, or change the term. There's a specific provision in the code that says you can place any conditions upon it that you deem appropriate or fit in the individual circumstance. So, again, circumstance could change.
Flexible around it.
Just because you grant this doesn't mean that it's forever and ever and ever, like you would a conditional use permit or something that might have a longer term effect. You can yank these as quickly as you can grant them.
Okay, so I hesitate to do this, but I might make an amendment here, because really what I'd like to do is I'd like to see this be have public safety in mind. And then if we're not comfortable with that and staff's not comfortable, then we look for solutions. So I would almost either say that we should direct staff to work with the property, or direct staff to give us the best solution to allow them to keep the dumpster here. And if there is no great solution, that we ask for a different alternative, such as moving it to one of the parking spots and then bring it in.
So, let me ask procedurally, I know what you're asking them.
Yeah.
Should the motion go forward, because that's a whole nother motion, I believe you can strike one word or substitute.
Or they could take his amendment back.
Or you could.
Well, we're back to the original, now amended motion, and that is on the floor for debate.
Right.
So-
Right, well, okay, I'm gonna have to vote no on it, because I just
Right,
don't
but if
feel
it
that we're public
fails-
safety officers here, and that,
If it fails, my procedure question is, can she make a motion?
In alternative motion, we take a different action?
Yes, like,
Sure,
well,
yeah, you could.
it's similar, but it's leaving it open-ended.
Absolutely.
Okay. Trustee McKay.
Also, it's if trustee Warren was open to withdrawing the motion.
I don't think you can now that we're on the floor and been debated.
I'm just saying, we could break it into two steps, so because.
I don't think we
if-
can. I don't think we can, because it's on the floor,
we
it's
can
an amended
reconsider
motion.
it though. Or can you not reconsider an amendment?
No, it's on the floor for
Yes, you
debate.
can vote.
We've already been in discussion, so we have to vote. We can't make a new motion to
No, but
reconsider.
we can't reconsider.
After the vote?
They
Well,
can
there's nothing to
reconsider the
reconsider
amendment.
because nothing is passed. There is a specific, chapter 155:13 addresses motion.
Just know, if you vote no, right, then
Oh, here's
you can make a new motion if it fails.
155:13, when a motion is made and seconded, it shall be deemed in possession of the board, it shall be stated by the president or if binding read by the clerk. Such motion may be withdrawn at any time before a vote has been had thereon.
Well, that's contrary to Robert rules.
With the consent of the board.
Then it's just right.
So unanimous consent of the board pursuant to our ordinance.
So, can I ask a question? Robert Rules says, I read it last night, if you have a motion and a second and it's announced by the president that it has to move forward. If you reconsider it and you want to amend it before it's announced and repeated by the president, you could do that. But this supersedes it because it's code?
Yeah, absolutely, it's superseded.
Okay, thank you. So, you could take your motion back.
I just want to.
But I don't think you can, because it's been voted on.
Everybody has a
It's already been
consent.
voted. Yes.
So, strike my comment, my transitional phrase about referring to trustee Warren's motion or amendment. My perspective, my position is that I don't have exact measurements in the board packet. So that's why it's reasonable to me to either remove the entire enclosure or to reduce the height so that it meets the level of the dumpster. And then come back to us, if the board isn't 100% comfortable, we could ask that those measurements be brought back to us. And then an alternative, a feasibility study about additional measures could then be considered separately.
Or we could just leave it up to staff to make the recommendation of what's the safest. Is that what you were suggesting, trustee Buckers? Okay.
But it seems like it would be possible to, if there's different levels of comfort here, we could take one step and then, since it is a special privilege and it can be revoked, then we could check it out.
Okay. But we do have a motion and an amendment that has passed, so now we have something on the floor, correct? It's not like we can take back the amendment. We have a motion that has been amended, and
The
it's
whole
under
thing
debate.
can either be withdrawn or revoked.
The whole amended motion can be withdrawn by who? You can't.
Now it's in possession of you.
Yeah, no.
And if
because
it fails, then
you can make a motion, can't you?
the person we could still make a motion about the special privilege.
I don't know, I'm asking.
Well, rather than, just so that anyone watching on the video or someone trying to read the minutes later. What you might want to consider, just from a procedural standpoint, not a policy standpoint, but a procedural standpoint, is seeing whether the motion carries or fails, and if it fails, someone can make another motion and see whether that fails, as long as it's not.
That's what I'm asking, because can you make a motion? I just don't know if it has to be significantly different.
Well,
We've done this
it would
before
be-
with Halloween.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do it here.
Okay, sounds like we can by our attorney, correct? All right, and it's important, because I would vote one way
Right.
if you could, one way if you couldn't.
Which I think is, again, for someone reading the minutes or taking the minutes, a lot cleaner than multiple levels of amendments that get voted on, which is hard to follow back up the rabbit hole, so to speak.
Trustee Warren?
So trustee McKay, if this fails, you're planning on reintroducing a motion to have them reduce the height and then come back to us with recommendations on making it even safer.
Well, trustee Bachhorst introduced something too, or wants to make a motion too, so it might be amended.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify that. There's two people that stated
I think
it.
I call the question.
Okay, we have a motion to call the question. All those in, do you need a second?
Motion
No, it's
Oh,
no,
yeah,
it's to call the question.
you're voting right now?
Call the question.
Right, and we don't need a second, correct?
Okay.
Attorney?
We did,
Yeah, because
it was already seconded, and then the whole body voted to amend.
To call the question, do you need a second?
point of procedure.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were asking.
Yes, then you gotta vote on it.
Okay, do we have a, I don't think we need a second.
Point of procedure, President
Okay, hold
Rutherford.
on. Yes?
Trustee Warren directed a question to me that I didn't get a chance to answer.
It doesn't matter, someone called the question.
No, you can't
It does
interrupt
matter.
discourse to call the question. That's Robert's rules. So she actually has
Is that
the right
correct?
to.
Because
I
that's
just
happened
wanted to
before.
call the
Thank you.
question.
I just really want to know the answer, so, from the attorney, because that's happened before and I didn't know that.
Well, once again, we have a village ordinance that
supersedes.
supersedes, so I will read it, and it's 155-17, previous questions. Any member desirous of terminating the debate may call the previous question, then the question announced by the president shall the main question be put. If a majority of the members present vote in the affirmative, the main question shall be taken without further debate, and its effect shall be put to an end, and bring the board to a direct voting. First upon the pending amendment, if there is one, and then upon the main question. So if there was an exchange prior to that was interrupted, you're the one running the meeting, if you think it's deemed appropriate, so that we get a clean record for those that are here, and for the video and for the minutes, if you want to say, let's finish that exchange and then vote on the previous question.
I have that authority? Because I certainly will do that, I just didn't know I had that authority, and I would like to change that, to go back to Robert's rules, and to allow everyone to have spoken at least once. That's what other communities do, but, go ahead, Trustee Warren, did you have Trustee McKay, you said someone was gonna answer?
I thought Trustee Warren directed a question to me.
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't get a chance to answer.
So if this fails, you plan on introducing another motion that would direct the enclosure to be reduced in height and to direct staff to come back to us with feasibility on other safety improvements that could be made.
I don't know that I would agree with that, because I'm assuming that there is a safety factor, which I'm not convinced that there is at this point, because I don't know the final of that. But I would like
Trustee
a motion
Menta?
to reintroduce, I'm still speaking, please.
He asked you a question, yes or no, please, we have called the question, and I am being respectful, but just, is the answer you're gonna?
I'm not sure we need to have discussion about future motions.
Right.
Let's just deal with the motion
Exactly.
now, and then people can make whatever future motions they want to make. I think we don't need to discuss future motions.
Correct, I agree.
But I also think that there
Trustee
are
Menta?
people that have asked to finish their sentence, and we usually,
A question has been called. Do I have a second? Do we need a second for a question, calling a question? Attorney Bear.
Again, I'm looking at the ordinance that takes precedence, and it says that, shall the main question be put? 155-17 doesn't indicate that a second is required, but generally under Robert's Rules of Orders, anytime a motion is made,
Yes or no?
a second is required. I would interpret, based upon the other ordinance that does otherwise adopt Robert's Rules of Orders unless prescriptively vetoed, I would say that you would have to have a second.
Okay, second. Now, the question has been called. If you vote yes, we will go immediately to a vote. If you say no, we will then further debate. All those in favor of calling the question, vote yay. Aye. All those in favor of not calling the question, vote nay. Calling the question wins 7-0. And now we will vote on the amended motion. Can you please read it back?
I can. To approve the application for a special privilege to allow a refuse cart and enclosure within the right-of-way at 3554 North Prospect Avenue, and to direct the applicant to alter the enclosure so that it does not extend higher than the dumpster, and to request DPW to review feasibility of fisheye mirrors, and if such, that the cost would be on the property owner to install.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed, say nay. Nay. Motion fails 7-0. So would someone like to make a motion? Trustee Bachhorst.
Oh, go ahead.
Trustee McKay. Listen, it's going to be amended.
All right, should I just make it? Okay, I'm gonna make it. I'm going to, I don't know how to word this, but what I want to do, let me just throw out the gist of it, and Nathan, maybe you can help me with this. I would like to grant this privilege, this special privilege, but only if this is in the best interest of the public safety. So I would like staff to take a look at the shaving of the height or whatever of the fence and see if that's reasonable. And if not, have them move if we're granting something that isn't safe, I don't feel comfortable with that either. So I would say that we have to come up with another solution.
I was going to second you, but I don't agree with that either. Okay, so we have a motion.
Well, that's not really a motion.
I was
I'm
gonna
just
say, I don't know if I report on that.
out there, so.
Okay, so no motion yet, you're just saying.
Well, all right, go ahead, Nathan.
All right, Trustee McKay.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, sure.
I
Maybe
move
clean
to
up.
approve the special privilege application, directing the owner of the building to make the enclosure equal to the height of the dumpster. And I would direct staff to come back to us with an assessment of improved conditions once that is completed.
What? What's that mean?
Well, once the change is made, measure the height to make sure that if it's near 3 feet or not 3 feet, I think that would make a difference, and we would want to review that.
Why would you do that first? I'm just wondering, if staff believes 3 feet is the right number, why wouldn't you do that first? Why make the improvement and then? Anyways, okay, so can you repeat that?
Yes. To approve the application for a special privilege to allow the refuse cart and enclosure within the right-of-way at 3554 North Prospect Avenue, and to direct the owner to make the enclosure equal to the height of the dumpster, and to direct staff to come back with an assessment of the approved conditions once completed.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second? No second? Any second? Motion fails. I'd like to make a motion. Ready? I'd like to make a motion to allow the property, to grant a special privilege to the property owner to allow the dumpster to remain in place, its current location, and to direct DPW and/or the planning department, or planning director, or whatever you want to say, to work with the property owner to adjust the height or the fence diameter or width or proportions to make it as safe as possible. Something like that. To suggest the safest dimensions for the fence. I mean, if it means remove it all, remove it all. If staff thinks you need to make it lower, you make it lower. If staff thinks you make it smaller, you make it smaller. Anybody have better language than one?
Can you read it?
To approve the application for the special privilege to allow the cart at the enclosure at Prospect Avenue, and to direct DPW and planning to work with the property owner to adjust the fence proportions to make it as safe as possible.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Can I-
Trustee Warren and then Mento.
I'm sorry, everyone.
Oh no, you already screwed us up once. You just go under your desk.
Just go with my motion was the
Here's
And I'd like to propose an amendment. I'm sorry.
You can ask me to amend it friendly.
Okay, I'd also like to direct DPW to return with any additional safety recommendations.
Okay, I could accept that. If any.
If
Well, like
any-
she's saying, you know, she's saying why.
Wasn't that the original motion? Well, not.
Why DPW?
Or planning.
Usually,
DPW.
actually, let me just suggest this, but actually, every time we've talked about stop signs and all that stuff, it's always been Chief Nimmer. And it's a public, I mean, it has, correct?
How about say,
For safety, I'll do it. I'll do it. It's like doing it, I'm just saying the best, let's who did it. So anyhow, staff doesn't seem to like our amendment here, and I have not agreed yet. Trustee Menta.
I make a point in that staff did make a recommendation in the body of the report. And it's the second to last paragraph. In response to vision complaints, staff notes a preference for any obstruction within a 10-foot vision triangle to not be above 3 feet in height. As a result, staff would not be in favor of allowing the refuse enclosure as designed and located in the current condition. So we have already heard.
So I'm not accepting Trustee Warren's amendment over there. Would you like to amend the motion?
Well, you can make that amendment.
It's just not a friend.
There's not a second. And
Yeah, there's
someone
no second.
seconds.
Any second?
What was the,
And it won't be as designed.
Direct
The
DPW.
design is going to be altered significantly with the motion that's on the floor.
Yeah, it's just whatever is the safest to alter the fence.
I mean, I would like to just say that we've got to keep it at the regulation safety height, or we've got to do something different.
Well, that's
Like,
not the
that
motion.
makes the most
It's not the
sense, so
motion.
I would recommend you guys let this fail and let's make a motion that is in the interest of the public safety and then go from there.
Okay, it's not the motion. So, yes.
Just listening to the discussion, it seems like there's been a lot of motions contingent upon additional information from staff. So you're not really sure if you want to grant it or not. You can always defer the matter.
Let's do that.
No, we're not deferring the matter. Staff has spoken. Staff has spoken tonight. The memo says they would not keep it as is, correct?
Do you recommend?
That's what the memo says. Leanne says, don't ask me for further safety measures. I can look at mirrors, but I don't think this is a really great location. And we've heard from our planning director that lowering it will make it closer to 3 feet, but it's not gonna be exactly 3 feet. How much more do we need? You're either gonna grant it because the board allows to grant in special privilege with special privileges, or you're not. So I'm perfectly fine taking a vote. I don't think we need to defer it, ask this poor gentleman and lady that have to come back again. It's just not, we're just not good business to do that. So if you prefer to do that as a board, we can. I would highly recommend that we just take the vote. What is the motion on the floor?
The motion on the floor to approve the application for the special privilege to allow a refuse cart and enclosure within the right-of-way at 3554 North Prospect Avenue, and to direct DPW and planning to work with the property owner to adjust the fence proportions to make it as safe as possible.
Okay, any further discussion on that motion? Trustee Bachos.
I'm gonna vote no just because I, again, think that we should listen to public safety and they're saying, staff is saying this is not acceptable
As designed.
as designed.
Well,
And- But we don't know by lowering it if it's gonna be acceptable.
Ask him. He's
If
saying
we,
he doesn't
if we
really
lower
care.
the fence to the height of
He's not
the,
gonna have any other opinion.
My recommendation is that nothing above 3 feet should be there. However, it's not my approval authority, it's the board's approval authority. And so I'm in the middle of,
We approved lilac, which is.
I've discussed this with Mr. Peck. I went to his site and tried to find other alternatives for it. Without moving it into a parking space, I could not find anything that was easy. Therefore, rather than trying to work with him to modify it initially, I said if he wants the approval in the current location, he would need to get the board's approval, which the code does allow.
It's just like a lilac bush that's too high.
My opinion is
Those.
definitely within here and offered, but that doesn't mean that my opinion, I'm not a traffic safety engineer. So I'm happy to provide what I can, but that's,
right, well, we have an option of having to move it, so, and we can make modifications too. So I'm gonna still vote no.
Okay. Any further discussion? Anybody need to read it back, or are we okay to vote? All right, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Can you just read there for me, I'm sorry. So motion carries 4-3. Thank you. Look forward to staff working with you to adjust the dimensions of your fence.
Okay, so I should,
You're in the clear, you're in the shade, so I'll
You're
do
just
I'm
that.
gonna lower the fence, I don't have to
As
wait
long as
for
that's what they
anybody.
say.
I mean, we've both been there for a while.
Yeah, whatever he thinks is best.
So we'll take it down, and I'll invite you back, and,
Yeah, you're good.
then we're okay.
Yes.
All right, okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your comments. Rebecca.
I'd like to make a request that we move out consideration of resolution 2019-21, fee schedule, fee schedule.
Where are we here?
Where we had
9. Is there a reason? Is it like time sensitive?
because what we staff members been waiting for this particular item, I didn't want to.
Okay.
Yeah.